Aside from people, the most valuable assets organizations have is information. In this video, I'll discuss data loss prevention. Data loss prevention is often referred in the industry to as DLP. This controls how valuable data is used and protected. It deals with intellectual property, confidential corporate data, as well as personally identifiable information or PI. DLP prevents data leakage, data disclosure outside of the organization to unauthorized users. DLP risks include things such as malware. An infected or compromised system or network might use spyware agents installed on hosts to gather data that is normally protected, and therefore that data would then be disclosed outside of the organization. Naturally, proper and up to date malware scanners help mitigate that risk. Other ways that data loss can occur are through social media links. So, for example, users using Facebook or Twitter might post sensitive information there either intentionally or unwittingly. So, we need controls in place to watch for that. Then there are things like mobile devices. These are a big risk in today's computing environment, yet at the same time, it allows people to be very productive and mobile at the same time. Laptops, tablets, and smartphones are computers, of course, and they should be treated as such. Most people are familiar with the fact that, yes, laptops and tablets are computers. A lot of people don't seem to consider smartphones to be full fledged computers, although really they are. So, as such, they need things like personal based firewalls installed, antivirus solutions installed, and so on. There are many infections for smartphones, so user awareness is key here. Other DLP risks include removable media, such as USB flash drives. So, for instance, we might have a user that copies sensitive data to your USB thumb drive and then takes that thumb drive elsewhere. And this has been known to happen in many different cases, even with sensitive military information. Risk origin usually ends up going back to humans. It's usually us that cause these security breaches and it results in data loss. Now, think about examples that we've seen in the media even over the last few years, such as the Target security breach, where 110 million customer records were stolen. Now, everybody needs to be involved with IT security to prevent that type of thing from happening, especially at that scale. And when we say everybody, we mean end users, management, the board of directors. Everybody needs to be involved with IT security, and awareness is key. Data loss prevention can be applied to data in use. That would be data being processed, for example, within an application. Data loss prevention can also apply to data in transit, such as encrypting data or limiting where data can be sent or received over a network. For example, sensitive files might be able to be attached to email messages, but the recipients might have to reside within the organization. Then there's data at rest, where we store data and it must be protected. Normally, this comes in the form of making sure the data is encrypted when it's stored and also auditing access to that data. To implement data loss prevention, the first thing we do is identify the data that needs to be protected. We then identify threats against the data and then apply our DLP solution. As with all security controls, we need to monitor our DLP solution as an ongoing task for effectiveness. Now, examples of this include things like Microsoft's group policy settings, where we can control removable media. Here in the group policy editor, whether we're editing local group policy, which we are here, or in Active Directory, we can control access to data being written to or read from USB devices. For example, under computer configuration in the left-hand navigator, I'm going to expand administrative templates, and under there, I'm then going to open up Windows components, and I'm going to look at BitLocker drive encryption. Now, in the Windows world, BitLocker allows us to encrypt entire disk volumes. So when I expand BitLocker drive encryption, I can see fixed data disks, operating system disks, and what we're looking for, removable data drives. Now, when I select removable data drives on the right, I get a handful of settings. For example, one of them is to deny write access to removable devices that aren't protected by BitLocker encryption. So To prevent data loss or disclosure of sensitive information outside of the organization, we might require encryption to be used on removable thumb drives before data can be written to them. Mobile devices are very convenient and can make people productive, but at the same time, it introduces new challenges and risks for IT security specialists. There are challenges with the BYOD environment, bring your own device, where users can bring personal mobile devices to be used for work purposes. Now, when this is done, the organization should be using some kind of centralized mobile device management or MDM solution where, for instance, a VPN connection would be triggered on a smartphone when a certain app that requires access is started. Also, strong device authentication requirements should be put in place, such as PKI certificate authentication or multi factor authentication. The device should be encrypted. We also should have remote wipe capabilities, so if the device is lost or stolen, we can either wipe just the company data from it or basically do a factory reset on the device to prevent sensitive data loss. We can also control app installations on mobile devices using our centralized MDM tool so that users don't install apps that might be malicious. We can also do things like disable Bluetooth, disable the camera, and many other options. Device partitioning or containerization is very important with mobile devices. It allows us to perform a selective wipe. So we might, for instance, have a corporate partition on a mobile device where we've got corporate apps, settings, and data, and then there's a personal partition with personal apps, settings, and data. So if the smartphone, for instance, is lost, we could perform a selective wipe against the corporate partition only. Solutions can also prevent data from being forwarded in the case of things like email, or in the case of printing, copying and pasting, or even storing data in alternate locations. Maybe in the corporate partition on a smartphone, corporate sensitive data might not be allowed to be stored in other locations, such as a user's personal Dropbox account. In this video, we discussed data loss prevention.